Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here in the village of Portchester with some of our local officials and community leaders, and I'm here to give you the update. Today's the 2 o'clock update on the Westchester coronavirus outbreak. I'm joined here by the mayor of the village of Portchester, Richard Fritz Falanka. You may remember we saw him last week when we were over at an affordable housing senior site that's nearing completion here in Portchester, so we're back again. I'll introduce everybody in just a second. For those of you who tune in just to get the numbers, let me make sure you have an idea of what the current spread is of the coronavirus in Westchester. Based on the recent numbers that we saw today from the state of New York, we have now 34,076 total positive tests for coronavirus from the beginning of the pandemic in March to today. So a little bit over 3 months, 34,076. That number is 41 higher than yesterday, which is a relatively small number given the fact that we're testing very aggressively in this county. We've now tested 192,442 residents, and that is 19% of all of Westchester's population have been tested for COVID. And that number has jumped up night after night in the vicinity of about 2,500 to 3,000 tests. So to have an additional 40 positives and a time frame with 3,000 more tests tells you that there is much less spread of the virus than has been reported before. Communities like Portchester Village, the larger communities, Yonkers, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, if you look at all the number of positives they've had since it began, the numbers are astronomical, but you have to look at how many active cases are involved, and that is how many people tested positive and have not yet gone 2 weeks and or are hospitalized, and for those cases of fatalities. And so those numbers are much lower. The number of active cases right now is 890 cases in Westchester County. Active cases of coronavirus where the individual has tested positive but has not cleared the 2-week period or is hospitalized. And that 890 is 38 less than it was the day before. It was over 900 the day before. That's a constant diminution. In the peak period a little over 2 months ago, we were almost 12,000 active cases, 890 active cases as we speak today. There have been 1,399 fatalities, just shy of 1,400. We lost 3 Westchester residents last night to COVID. Those numbers are much lower in overnight fatalities from where we were at the peak, where we lost 40, 50. One night we lost 72 people, which is an inconceivable number of deaths. And here in Portchester, we've lost a lot of people that we know, personal friends of mine, people like Mike Grandazzo, Mario Nardi, Joanne Amico. We lost, right? And of course, the mayor's brother passed away through COVID. And some of those people were in this very room, which serves as Portchester's senior center, and with daily nutrition programs served in this venue. So this is not something that's distant and far away from us. This is right here in our backyard. But in any event, our numbers continue to show the diminution of COVID, and that is how we follow the rules that were set down by the governor. And we are now in phase 2. Phase 2 allows for the opening of a number of different things that were not open previously. We now have open all retail establishments, except for those that are an interior to a mall, a shopping mall. If you have an interior mall like the Galleria, the Westchester Mall, Jefferson Valley Mall, the interior stores that don't have an external entrance are closed. Other than that, all the rest are open. So here in Portchester, where you have the Cole Shopping Center Mall, that's all an exterior strip mall, if you will. All of those stores are eligible to be open. Down here on Main Street, North and South Main Street, that portion of Westchester Avenue, in the town at Rye Ridge Shopping Center, just over the border in Rye Brook, all of those retail stores are open. All of the administrative offices are now open under Phase 2. There are restrictions as to how many people can be present in those offices, so they can't come back at 100% occupancy. It has to be at 50% occupancy. But that opens up offices in many of our different corporate office buildings. Gateway Plaza, it's a couple blocks from here, houses a number of different organizations, not-for-profits as well as corporations, and the corporate headquarters that are not too far from us, the MasterCards, and up the road a little further, PepsiCo and other corporate headquarters. They're all now officially able to be open. The good news for those of us who've been waiting either to go to the beauty salon or the barber is that they are now open under Phase 2, and I'm just waiting to get an appointment. But the bottom line is that is an area that's been closed now for these 3 months, and it's been very difficult. Nail salons are not yet open. They were closed at the same time as beauty salons and barber shops, but in the governor's assessment of these things, the nail salons are not yet open. So that is one of the things that's not yet happening. Restaurants are open for outdoor seating. And there are restaurants here. We're not far from Michael's that has a little backyard patio that hasn't been used much. It's going to get used now. And much of it falls to the village to determine if they can allow for outdoor dining in places that were not particularly zoned or planned for that. But as a concession, many communities are making those decisions to allow for those things as well. So phase two has some other elements too, real estate offices, open law offices, and so forth. The full opening of restaurants come under phase three. There's a lot of other details to be dealt with about what opens and closes. The county government does not make these decisions. We try to implement the decisions with the village, the town, the local businesses, the Chamber of Commerce's, to try to help people qualify, because we want the society opened. We want it opened healthy. We don't want to spread the virus again. That's not good for business. People have to have confidence that they can go out and resume their lives. In a second, you'll meet a couple of the members of our religious community who are with us here, and religious institutions are starting to open up. I happen to be Roman Catholic. I'm a parishioner at a Catholic church one town away from here, and for the first time in 3 months, I was able to go to a daily mass today. But social distancing, limited number of seating, daily masses are easier than Sunday masses. Sunday religious services usually attract a higher percentage of the congregation. It's true of our Jewish brothers and sisters as well in the various synagogues for their Friday night Shabbat services. So there are still logistics to be worked out before we can fully resume the faith portion of our life, as well as the going out to eat portion of our life. But the county is working with all of these entities to try to help make these things happen. We're here today also to deliver some more masks to some of our religious institutions here, and also through the village. So with that, I'm going to invite the mayor, since we're in his house. Thank you again for hosting us. Mayor Richard Fritz Falanka, who will introduce his colleagues in government, and then also, if you would, if one of you would also introduce our religious leaders who are here as well. We invite you to share anything about what's happening in the village of Portchester. It's a place I'm in all the time. I love this village, and the people love it, and we want to be helpful and be good partners as best as we can. But since folks are watching from all over the county, yesterday you got a little window into Hastings, Croton-on-Hudson, the day before that, Hastings-on-Hudson. Let's get a little insight into the village of Portchester. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, for being here in the Village of Portchester. I'd first like to introduce from the Village Board of Trustees, Trustee Joan Grangeois-Thomas, our Village Manager, Christopher Steers, and from our religious organizations, Pastor Kemp and Pastor Gertman, who are here today to join with us and receiving the Mass from the County of Westchester. Thank you, George and Westchester County, for providing daily reports on the COVID-19 virus. I get these numbers. I post them on my personal page and Facebook. It's enlightening to see the numbers going down and the number of active cases, but I always caution our village, don't let your guard down. The virus is still out there, and it's still something we have to deal with. We are a very diverse and heavily populated community. 2.4 square miles, 30,000 people, and we are very concerned about them, catching this virus and spreading it throughout our village. I want to thank our State Senator, Shelley Mayer, and Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who provided testing sites here in the Village of Portchester these past 2 weeks. And I understand from Northwell Health that it was heavily used by the Village of Portchester residents, and was one of the most successful sites that they have provided. So again, we've gotten a lot of help. We've gotten a lot of help from Westchester County, help from the state, and I just urge the Portchester residents, don't let your guard down. Let's keep staying safe. George, with that, Chris or Joan? Chris, you can fill up on our operations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the County Executive for the opportunity and for all the hard work that the county is doing with us to help to provide the guidance that we need in this phase 2 of reopening. We have over 1,200 positive cases in the village, but the numbers have improved very significantly with the number of active cases. At last count, we only had about 15 active cases, which is phenomenal. And it's really a credit to the community for the hard work they are doing, maintaining the social distancing, cleaning and sanitizing, and wearing a mask. That's what's really helping to drive these numbers down, so I encourage everyone to continue to do that as we reopen. Village Hall has been open in varying capacities over the last several weeks, and we're now at 50% capacity with our staff. And we do have a business plan that's being submitted to the state, as all the other businesses are required to do, to submit their affirmation to the state that they understand the rules and the CDC guidelines. It's very important to maintain that. We will be requiring people who come to the Village Hall and village offices to wear a mask. We have non-contact temperature testing that is taking place as well. We're limiting capacity, and we're making sure things are properly marked so people understand what the proper social distancing is. So this is the new normal for everyone that we're going to be going forward. And I just want to say good job, Portchester. We're doing very well with the numbers, and we need to keep that up. Joan?
Thank you very much to County Executive Latimer, Mayor Falanca, and Chris. While we have been living in this pandemic, life still goes on. We are still preparing and gearing up for primary elections. Folks should have been receiving their absentee ballots. We want to make sure that people continue to stay engaged that way. We also have the census that we know is still being conducted as we speak and will continue on through the end of October. We can't urge enough how people need to be able to get themselves counted, to stand up and make sure that Portchester receives as accurate a count as possible. The census equals power, respect, and money, and we know that it's still a very important duty for all of us to be able to participate and stand up to be counted. So I would urge those who are listening in whatever community that you live to make sure that you respond to the census either by phone, by email, or the paper survey that you receive. I'd also just like to make sure that we understand our businesses are still hurting as a result of the pandemic, and we hope to support them as best as we can to be able to open up again and to be able to go back into full service again. We know that they are hurting, and we will do the best that we can to help them survive this particular condition. And again, thank you to County Executive Latimer for the masks. They will go a long way. And we also just wanted to make sure that we recognize and acknowledge that Portchester just recently had a tremendously successful peaceful protest on behalf of George Floyd. And our clergy came together. It was an interfaith, it was peaceful, and we had over 1,000 people join Portchester residents to look for an end to police brutality and racial injustice. And so we look forward to continuing to work together in our community to make sure that we are engaging not just with our police community, but with everyone to see that Portchester remains a unified community and a safe place to live. So I thank the county executive for being a part of that, for our pastors and for the mayor and the village manager, as well as our police that worked with us and walked with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joan. I'd like to invite Pastor
Yeah, I was going
Kemp.
to, George, I was just going to do that. Reverend Gertman, you're the recipients of these masks from the county. I'm sure you'd like to say a few words.
We would like to thank God for our county executive and to our mayor and to our village manager, and also to Joan, to Pastor Kemp, and to all the people who are here. We thank God for these masks. They'll go a long way in helping our community because in Portchester, the ministers have gotten together with our community to help our community out, to show faith, because in this pandemic, people are looking for answers, and a lot of times there are no answers. So we want to build through faith to let them know that there is an answer, there is hope after the pandemic. So again, we thank you, County Executive, for all the hard work that you're doing for the County of Westchester. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend.
As I thank the county executive and the mayor for this opportunity to speak, and to thank you guys for the mask. We'll be waiting on our Episcopal leadership for when we decide to open up the building and bring our congregants back, as about 80% of my congregation are 70, 80, 90 years old. So we want to just err on the side of caution before we come back. But even though the church building is closed, the church is still open. Portchester is a great community, and St. Francis African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church has partnered with the Salvation Army Carver Center, Cartheus, and other food organizations to form what we now call the Portchester Food Network. We've been having food drives at the St. Francis Church, and we've also helped with the senior center. We partner with another Westchester nonprofit organization, West Fair Rides, who have about 10 volunteers coming to deliver food to about 50 or 60 seniors here in Port Chester, those who may not be able to get out to the various hubs that are around. And so at St. Francis on the second Wednesday and not this Wednesday on the 17th, but on the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of each month, we deliver to our seniors and also have food to pick up. We're responding to this COVID-19 by still doing ministry. 80% of Christ's ministry was outside of the temple, and St. Francis is committed to helping where we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Kemp. Pastor Gertman, do send our respects to the members of the congregation, the other clergy, to Bishop Gertman, whom we saw over the weekend. I want to thank the mayor and Trustee Joan and also our village manager, Chris Steers. We've also been joined by Missy Didden, who is the wife of Bart Didden, also a member of the Village Board of Trustees. She's here in a matter of advocacy for those who want to be able to visit their loved ones inside nursing homes. There will be something on social media that will reflect some of her advocacy, and people have a chance to see it, and we will try to lobby within the bounds of state government to accomplish those missions. So I want to allow you all to sit down and relax. You don't have to stand up throughout the whole presentation. So, but thank you very much, and we're very happy to do our part. I also want to recognize the other elected officials that are very much a part of this process of mass distribution. Not all of them are able to be with us all the time, but County Legislator Nancy Barr represents the Village of Port Chester, Village of Rye Brook. She is part of these decision makings that we have as we reach out to the community. She's able to reach out to some of these entities on her own, and we look forward for that continued cooperation. The aforementioned Senator Shelley Mayer and Assemblyman Steve Otis as well have been part of that. The building that we're in holds the district offices for both Senator Mayer and for Assemblyman Otis, as well as the offices for the town of Rye government, Gary Zuckerman and his team. It's also Ken Manning and the Chamber of Commerce for Port Chester, Rye Brook, Rye Town is in this building, and of course in this room that we're in, the Port Chester Seniors meet. So this is a very active location here, 222 Grace Church Street in Port Chester. We don't have major announcements for today. We are hoping to make some announcements before the end of the week, which means one of the next 2 days, relative to some additional decisions we'll be making on our recreational policies within the county. The governor's executive orders have covered businesses and not-for-profits in a host of areas. One of the open areas, though, that was left to local governments is to decide what to do with our recreational facilities. And as we've reported over the last number of weeks, we've opened up Bicycle Sunday. Now it's going to be open throughout the summer. We made that announcement last week as an added benefit for those who are bicyclists. We've opened up our 6 public golf courses. They've been open up for over a month. We've opened up now, heading into our 4th weekend, our 2 beaches, the one that's in this area of the county at Playland, one on the other side of the county at Croton Point Park. And so that is some efforts. And we're now working, as we announced, to open up 4 of our 5 public pools. 2 of them will open up in 2 weeks' time at Saxon Woods and White Plains, and also at Sprain Ridge Pool Complex on Jackson Avenue in Yonkers, Hastings border. And then the following weekend, which will be the 4th of July weekend, we'll be opening up pools in Wilson Woods in Mount Vernon and Tibbetts Brook Park in Yonkers, a little further south and central in Yonkers, to try to help folks stay cool. So the 2 beaches, the 4 pools, hopefully will help in that process. There are things that we are not doing. Unfortunately, we're losing our year of ethnic festivals throughout the course of this year. We'll have an announcement about that. So far, we have not been able to see clear to opening Playland Amusement Park. We'll try to have an announcement about that as well, so people know and you understand that, where we stand on these different issues. Aside from that, we will wait until next week to discuss a little bit more about the county finances. They have been impacted dramatically by the loss of revenue with COVID. All governments have been, just as individuals have been, just as small businesses and large businesses have been. But we've been looking at some different strategies. We have a budget gap, what we've done so far, what we intend to immediately do to close that gap, and then how much of a gap we think we'll have to work on in the days to come. We obviously are in the middle of our budget year, so we have through the end of the year to either reduce expenditures or find additional revenues that will offset the gap that we face. None of those revenues can come from additional property taxes. We've levied property taxes for the year. There's a slight cut in county property taxes from 2019 to 2020. That is in force, but what happens in other areas we'll have to determine, see where we go from there. There are other announcements to make. I'll briefly mention one more thing, that there's a $15 million relief sewer that's going to be installed on a section of the sawmill along Hunts Lane in the town of Newcastle. Now, as often happens, when we're here in Portchester, we talk about Portchester, someone's watching this from another part of the county, they don't even know the geography, not really sure, might have been to Portchester, maybe wasn't. Well, by the same token, if you're from one part of the county, you may not know where this area of the town of Newcastle is, except that this is a very important capital project to deal with flooding and to deal with some of the problems with sewerage movement with the various side pipes and so forth. So it is boring and mundane unless it affects you directly. And if it affects you directly, this becomes a major public capital project improvement that will help the people who live in that section of the town of Newcastle. I don't want to go on and on today, so I'll stop our presentation. I want to thank the Village of Portchester for allowing us to be in their space, those who are with us today, and those from the religious community. We intend to help more of these entities as much as possible as we go forward. I understand we don't have any questions from the press, and so if anyone from the press is watching and they do want to follow up, you're welcome to call Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications, public number 995-2932. Her phone lines are going to light up now like a Christmas tree now that I've made that public for everybody to see. But we're happy to try to talk about any of the issues of the day as affects the county government and, of course, the other levels of government that we interact with. Thank you very much for watching. Again, be safe. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back on with an 11 o'clock Facebook live interview. I believe our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, will be handling that particular interview, but we'll be back again tomorrow, we assume at 2 o'clock, to give you the update of the numbers. We'll have another one of our municipal guests with us to talk about a different municipality in the county. We hope the numbers continue to go down. And we ask you, please, go out and support those businesses that are just reopening. They desperately need your financial support to survive. If you have that discretion that you can go out, whether it's for a meal or to buy something in person, this will help us save our mom and pop businesses coming out of this difficult time. So I'm George Latimer, County Executive. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.